Well, thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am pumped today to have Mark Samuel from IWON Organics on the podcast today. Thank you for joining, Mark.
Thanks. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you. Would you mind just giving everyone a little background into you? And I know you've started a lot of different businesses, so it'd be cool to kind of just hit on what you've done and obviously IWON.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughters, both my kids are in the office.
Love it. No, this is great.
I don't know. Are we doing live? Are we doing?
I'm recording the video. I do video on YouTube, but it's fine.
It's fine as long as it doesn't bother you.
Oh no, not at all.
People understand.
This is COVID-19 time.
This is how we roll. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So we founded. No, because this is actually. We founded IWON Organics. Started in 2016, and we've gotten ourselves here. So that's an achievement all in itself.
Absolutely.
Before that, had started, that's all I've ever done. So 18 years now for my professional career. Have always started something on my own or with a co-founder, started in real estate finance, moved into inventing some housewares types of products, got into the gym scene a little bit, got into CrossFit for a while. Had a box early on in the CrossFit days in San Francisco, and then had developed a couple brands in the meal management category with regards to travel bags. So I had invented some what we now call meal management bags, and then most recent venture is IWON Organics. We're a health and wellness platform, is what I call it. But we innovate healthy, better for you snacks made from real foods like peas, beans, and rice.
Got it. Yeah, love it. I know I was just doing research on you and the brand. I was pumped. I was like, I remember the meal bags, like the Sixpack bags. I'm like, those were so popular when I was in college. Like that was what everyone had. So I would want to kind of hit on that just to start it off. Like I would love to know just like the idea, where it came from, and like very brief how that story all unfolded.
Yeah, the co-founders and I, there's two of them, but one other main co-founder and I were working on another project, and we were lifting a lot of weight at the time, and typical gym goers.
Sure.
But I ate and always have eaten a certain way. Very disciplined about my eating habits. That's where IWON came from. Balanced nutrition is what I'm really into: proteins, fats, carbohydrates. But I eat a lot. I ate a lot more back then too. So on my desk is really where it was inspired from. There was just a lot of food, different foods in bags and protein bottles and the likes just scattered on the desk. And one day it was kind of brought to me on a napkin, which was basically a sketch of what most people would know as the original Sixpack bag. So it was an oversized cooler, but had independently accessible meal containers for organization. And that's how Sixpack was originated. That was back in 2008, 2009.
That's awesome. That was a tough time to start a company, I'm sure, right? A little bit?
It would be for most, right? Because we were we were going into a recession. We had some financial troubles, if everybody remembers, right? Banks were having to deal with some stuff. But at the same time, it just so happens I was actually in the fitness scene. Health and wellness usually does okay during times like that. I was also involved at that time in the medical marijuana business.
Oh, okay.
That also did not have too much of an effect during that time. It's also because people would think, oh, wow, how did you do that way back then? It was way before what it is now. In fact, we were one of the few to have an original license for brick and mortar in San Francisco. So I got out of that fairly quickly. It's not something I was interested in, but it gives context to the story of during times, are there thriving businesses? And the answer is yes. And in this particular case for Sixpack, same thing. Health and wellness usually survives during tough times.
Right. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And when did you decide to leave Sixpack? Was it to start IWON or IWON, or was it something else?
It was actually to start Fitmark, but Fitmark hadn't even started yet. It was about 2 years in. It was just one of those things. We were on, a good ride, and I saw where it could go, but there were partners involved, and there was just a lot of, there was just a lot of, there was a lot of opinions. And, it's one of those things, I don't regret anything. Everything from my past and even things that I learned today, there's things that I love to just share. People ask about co-founders and what's that like? And what if there's multiple people at the table who makes decisions? Like, those are things that you learn through different experiences. And one of them, and one of the one of the biggest experiences for me is I do better on my own. Just as far as the founding element, as far as building a team. I love having team members. I love being around teams, but it is a little bit different if there are co-founders involved. So it was just something I wanted to do. I wanted to go do another venture on my own, and that's what happened after a couple of years.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So you actually feel like it's been beneficial for you to not have co-founders, just be a single founder and start it from just you and grow a team around that.
That short answer is yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Love it. And then what was the major inspiration around IWON? I was curious like where that come from, kind of just the background of the ideation.
The acronym is Winning on Nutrition. The spirit of it really is about the idea of winning. I mean, it was from day one. It is today. I knew that it was going to take a lot of time as far as people to really catch on. And I didn't know if it would get to where we are today. Again, we have so much room. We're such a small company, right? But and people get this a lot from us and from me and just the overall vibe of the brand. We're just all about positivity. We're all about feel good. We're all about, staying in that winning element, but it doesn't have to be just about food. It doesn't have to be just about nutrition. It can be family and relationships and nutrition and everything. Social media I talk about often, right?
Sure.
Just staying in a good vibe when it comes to that. Maybe putting down the phone, things like that. Just the idea and feeling of winning was just a big part of my makeup and what I want it to be each day and each week. And I'd really like that for consumers too.
Got it. Love that. And then how did you decide right away? Were you thinking like you wanted a balanced nutritional product line? And like, how'd you get into like the puffs, the chips? I'm curious, like how you decided to go down the route you did.
Savory snacks that were higher in protein were not prevalent when I had the idea. That was 2015. So that's what got it going. That's what sparked the idea and got us into innovation. It was going to be a chip. And I talk often about the story about Quest launching their original chip. And so it was the driver of us moving forward because we recognized that there was going to be an opportunity still, especially again, because their first iteration wasn't very good.
Right.
And so that's how we really got it started.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I saw you posted something recently just about like making sure your product tastes good. I thought that was great because I think it's funny. Something at RX, I feel like we talk about constantly is like, as we're going through all the iterations, we're like, if it doesn't taste good, we're never going to sell it. And that's always like at the end of the day, before we sell something, we want to make sure it tastes good. But I thought that was great. That's a good point.
Yeah. You can sell it, right?
Sure.
The main takeaway for people who are getting into the business or building their business is you just won't be able to sell it for very long, right?
Yeah,
you won't get the consumer to come back and get to where really you want them to be, which is in craveability mode.
Yeah.
People, we don't use that word enough, right? In food and beverage, but if you have a product line that's craveable, you're in a whole other element, right? Where a customer or consumer's thinking about your food or beverage when they don't have it in front of them.
Right.
The only way to get there is you lead in with taste.
Yeah. And I think for lack of better words, the aisle you're attacking is perfect for that. I think it's probably one of those few aisles that people like. I know about me personally, like thinking about chips and something healthy. That's like, especially on the weekend, that's like always what I go to. So I love that. How did you, I know one thing I guess I wanted to point out, I loved I saw you guys did a website redesign to bounce to that. I think you're rolling out some more stuff too, but I was on there today. It looks great.
Yeah, the website's good. We're doing some stuff to it now that will be fun to showcase in the next 30 to 60 days. So
awesome.
It's piece by piece. Yeah, I noted that we're doing a sort of a a redraw on the direct to consumer business. We have a good one and it's growing. But my post this morning was about it. Like we went this last 45 days. I brought on somebody recently who's just a dynamo, and
Okay.
you know those people when you bring them on, especially depending on the what piece of the business they're going to be helping. We're about to release some stuff, and I'm like really amped about it. So it should be some good stuff.
That's exciting. And you guys couldn't be doing it at a better time when this is just becoming, I mean, it's becoming the big piece of the pie for most brands in our space.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and then I guess the next thing I want to jump into was just I was curious on how you decided to work with green peas, yellow peas, brown rice, and navy beans. Just I've done through my own, being in the CPG industry, I've always tinkered with ideas, and it's funny because like those four ingredients are always like the plant-based ingredients that I've like messed around with before. So just curious how you stumbled on those and decided to go with those.
It was going to be plant-based. So
Okay.
again, originally from 15, when I was deciding what was going to be really the base of this products, I decided plant-based more about which morphed into my story. I had started transitioning. I'm by no means a full vegan, but I have transitioned into more plant-based foods,
Oh,
plant-based shakes over the past 6-7 years, where I probably eat more plant foods than not now. And so I knew that was going to be the base. And the question was, what was it going to be? And I stumbled upon peas, the sustainability part about it, the idea that I could eventually, which we got to now, really make it work for our snacks.
oh, got it. Yeah. No, love that. Is there a reason you decided to transition into like plant-based foods just in general? I'm always curious of that.
It was probably just more about the health reasons that you read or continue to read on. I stay in the middle on that topic. I
Sure.
kind of laugh off. I mean, I'm very candid. People know me. I laugh off a lot of the stuff that's being developed,
Okay.
to mimic things. Again, more power to those groups, the brands, all the money that's being thrown in that category. I mean,
Right.
whatever, right? Do you? But I'm not you can still find plant foods or things that are enjoyable, right? Without, without mimicking, in my opinion. So I just was doing it to get more of a balance, because that's another thing that I'm really big into, is just balance in all things in life. So that's how it started.
Got it. Oh, I love it. That makes total sense. It seems like you've obviously started lots of companies, and you hit on that at the beginning. One thing I like to ask founders on here is, do you remember? And this might have been a little bit easier for you since you've had started other companies. Do you remember the conversation you had with your wife or your family, like the specific conversation where you're like, "Hey, I'm going to start this and I'm going to do it," and like how you handled that or how it was handled?
Luckily, I did this from the beginning, right? When I was 21, 20. So that's all I know.
Okay.
So there is no discussion. And I say this candidly also, I really don't know what it's like to work for somebody.
Got it.
Um, and but the flip side to that is very important, is those that have worked with me, they work with me. It's why I've been very, very blessed, like retention wise. Like I have the same 5 people that we started this with.
Oh, wow.
Two of them came from the previous one, and my operations exec has come with me on the last like 4 or 5.
Oh,
And our
geez, that's
teams are very
awesome.
small. Yeah, but again, it's not an attest to me. It's just I'm just cut that way.
Yeah.
This is a team effort, right? That's all I talk about. I'll get, I got to take out the garbage the same way that I need to go, create a relationship that's going to offer us a great opportunity, because I
Right.
don't care. I'll do it all. Right.
Yeah. Got it.
And so I don't know anything else.
That makes sense. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you've just always done that. Is there is that just something you think have you just been an entrepreneur and had that entrepreneurial spirit your entire life? Or is that something that you developed as a young adult and just decided to go that route and risk it early on versus, going to work for somebody, for example?
All those, there's a lot of cliche stuff that goes on out there about that. And so I kind of try not to get into that. I will just
Sure.
say, I've always sold things.
Okay.
I sold things as a kid, and I sold things when I was a young adult, and then when I was an adult. And that's all I know. So
Simple, but I love that. I've just always
yeah,
sold
that's
things.
all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And I enjoy it, right? I enjoy what I do. And this, I'm very, like I always say, I use this. I am very blessed because over the last 18 years of getting my ass kicked, right? Because that's all it is. You're just
Yeah.
constantly getting your ass kicked. That's the whole game you're involved with, right? And you pull out some, at least this is mine. Everybody has their own story. In mine, I pulled out a few small wins, right? As far as some businesses and the like, and I've gotten Trump, I mean, like literally ran over on some. And those are the things that I've experienced and I can take with me. But I found myself now here in something that I love, like
Got it.
in all ways. And that's the great part about it. Still really tough. We're in a tough business, and we get beat up all the time. But I love what I do, so that's important.
That seems like that's probably the most important, right? Do you have any advice for, someone who's either working for someone who wants to become an entrepreneur or someone who is like in that process of trying to go from 0 to 1 on just like how you get through all that tough stuff, or not even the tough stuff, but just like how do you go from 0 to 1, I think is really the question.
Yeah, my advice is don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. No, again, just telling it how it is. This is such a tough business in all realms, everything you're doing. And depending on your circumstance and your position and who you know or don't know, and did you have money growing up? Did you not have money? Are you well connected? Do you have it inside of you? I think there's that thing that, again, it's kind of common that drifts out there about like, you just go and do it. Just go and do it.
Yeah. I thought that's what you might say. You're not like that. That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm not really, it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You were either built for this or you weren't. You don't really need to just take the leap of faith. You just don't, because I'm telling you that after the leap of faith, if it took you that much time, effort, and commitment physically and mentally to push yourself there, there is about to be a boulder that comes down at you so hard and fast that you don't have time to muster up enough strength to get over the next one, right? So most people, men and women who are doing this, are cut a certain way. It is. And those are the ones that I again would say, yeah, sure, go for it. You'll know.
Yeah. That's actually really, really great advice. I think it's funny, as I've talked to more and more founders in the CPG industry on here, without knowing it until you said it, that's exactly what I've seen too, is like, there's not this magic thing that people like to talk about on social media. It's like every single one of the people I've met is just like, they just knew what they needed to do. And they just kind of blocked out the rest of the bullshit and they just did it. And they didn't think about doing it. That's just what they felt like they needed to do. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a small percentage of people who, no matter what, are just going to keep going, right?
Right. Right.
Until the lights turn out, basically, is what happens, right? Money runs out, the lights turn out, you're done, right? Or you just realize that shit, your idea sucks.
Or
Like,
that.
there is
Yeah.
no pivoting to anything. Your idea sucks. Turn off the light. I've talked about that before too. Nothing wrong with quitting. I mean, there's this thing out there, stigma, like, don't quit, don't keep going, get to the next corner. That's when the success comes. That's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
There are plenty of times it's usually described in different ways when somebody goes out of business or they can't get funding anymore, or again, their idea just sucks.
Sure.
You end up just quitting because that's what you have to do for you to then, yes, do what you need to get on with your life, get to the next opportunity that maybe you have success with, right?
Right.
So there's just people who are cut a certain way that can just constantly get through a lot of the bad stuff that comes your way when operating a business.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. Have you guys, just speaking on like tough times and trying to get through them, has COVID been, I'm sure it's been challenging for you as it's been for a lot of us in the CPG industry. I'm curious how you guys have tried to handle a lot of that.
We were kind of lucky in many ways. We had not yet gone into a couple channels like convenience for one, and then food service. The
Yeah,
ones who were in food service, and that was a big piece of their business, you know, they got hit hard.
sure.
And we were really lucky. We hadn't gone that way yet. At the same time, we had launched a few big retail partners, and we saw the dip right in the early March, right? People were going to comfort foods,
Right.
things that aren't like ours, which is better for you. Ours might be, we're organic, so we're a little premium. So we saw it, but we got through it, and then we started to see the trend back up to what we consider normalizing. But we're affected as a new brand because of the trial aspect.
Right.
We call it the exploring aspect, right?
Love it.
Even for an RX bar, you might, you launch a new flavor. They're like, I don't want to try that because I don't want to waste my, $3, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to go to my go-to. And so we get hit in that effect. On the flip side, our direct consumer business is growing, and it's forced us to do things that we probably wouldn't have done, which is like hunker down, get your shit together, look at your finances, and dial in on things that you might not have been dialing in on.
Right. Yeah. No, love that. Was there anything like light bulb moment during COVID as far as D2C and e-commerce that you'd want to share that's just like something that you hadn't thought about, or maybe to your point, spent the time focused on that it was kind of like a light bulb moment during COVID?
Yeah, the two things that, again, our Amazon business was already growing. So we just kind of did a few more things. I think people should, I've talked about this too, about multi-packs, especially
Yep.
if you have products that have offerings. The RX does it, right? It's probably their number one SKU.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. But, so, and then for us, that was working. And then as far as direct to consumer for our website, that made us do what it is we're doing, which is I brought on somebody to really dial that in, because we were like decent at it. And I can hear myself saying it. It kind of makes me upset. But I let it go on, right? Because again, we can only juggle so much.
Yeah.
But I forced myself to hunker down, get it done. And so those are the things that it's kind of pushed us to do.
That totally makes sense. Have you guys also, I'm curious as talking to someone who's leading a brand at your guys' stage, are you rethinking like your distribution strategy at all? Like from pre-COVID to now, like that's an interesting place, I would think, for you and other younger brands. Like for us, we're pretty well distributed at this point. But for someone who has the opportunity to say yay or nay to somewhere with high slotting or something that maybe doesn't look as appetizing anymore, have you guys thought any differently about some of those places?
That's a good question. Another item that I've been talking about is you do have to be prepared to say no right now.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I often say, like, as a sales guy, right? I'm a salesperson first, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I say yes to everything, right? Shoot,
business.
my kid asks me for something, it's like they don't even need to sell me. Like a car, like somebody's selling me something, it's like, fine. So sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
You can change your distribution in regards to making sure that the partners you have now are being treated as such. You don't need to move on and add another, retailer and get more doors. No, focus on who you have now. Those are partners, remember, right?
Right.
And get your velocities to a decent state, right? If there are opportunities, and we see them too, you need to look at them. If they're expensive, and more power to them, people sometimes on my side, I hear, a lot of like, what's the slotting? Or like, oh, it's bad. Whatever, man. It's their business, right?
Yeah. Right.
You
Yeah.
have to go open up a retailer, right?
Yeah.
Don't charge slotting. I don't look at it like that. It's part of their business. It's like, okay, but with that said, if it's not something you can afford, then you just say no, and that's okay. They're not going to be like mad at you. If anything, they can respect you, because you will say, the second time around, we might be able to do that. Maybe you're going to get a new, tranche of funding that can afford you to do that. But in short, you do what's best for your company.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense completely. I think everyone pre-COVID was probably more so, not everybody, but a lot of companies were probably in the camp of distribution is king. Let's pay for it now. We'll make up for it later. And I think one thing that I've, definitely learned through this whole time frame is just, cash is king too. So, making smart decisions along the way. Right. Um, on the same page of like financing and, slotting, for example, one thing I think is interesting in the RX story, and as I talk to founders, like everyone's found different ways to do it. And you've started several businesses, so I'd love to get your take on this. What is your thought as far as maybe CPG over other businesses on bootstrapping versus raising money? Versus, I know you've done a little bit of money raising, so just curious of like how you thought through it as an entrepreneur and like how you decided on the best route.
This is an expensive business. I
Yeah.
mean, again, I talk about it too. Um, that's the stuff that I put out there, right? Like as far as content, people are like, yeah, this guy's really just tells it out because I don't care. I mean,
No,
I'm
I love
trying
how
to,
real you are. You just tell it as is. I
I
love
don't
that.
care. I just honestly don't care because I'm trying to help. Like, people read the headlines, right? XYZ raises 5 million, XYZ rises 10 million. They don't know what's going on in the business. Most of the time, those businesses aren't making money, right? They're
Yeah,
not profiting.
sure.
And that's cool too. There is a different strategy. And again, like I always say too, more power to them. They might have a different uh, they might have a different storyline. They have a different path to the profits. I don't know. But what's not talked about is the amount of failures that occurs, right? You ever been to Expo West, which again, you're not going to it for quite some time here,
Yeah.
but you ever been there? You ever seen how many brands are there? Go the next year. How many are still there, right?
Ooh, good
Or the
question.
ones that can't even, first, most can't even afford to do that, right?
Sure.
A lot of CPG companies start and don't make it because they, number one, don't know the ins and outs. Just like me when I got started, I talk about that often too. Got my ass kicked, dude, for like 18 months. I still get my ass kicked. So it's like, it's kind of a running joke. Like this is a really tough business and you need to be well capitalized and you need to not read into the headlines because it kind of gets you all out of focus, right?
That makes sense.
And you just gotta build a business that hopefully is going to get to profitability sooner than later. The latter, the other side to it, sure. Again, we don't need to mention names, but I just interviewed somebody and, they got a big business and there's no profit still, big,
Yeah.
and that, it's just a different way to operate a business. And as to each their own, that's why I always end with two. It's up to you. Do what makes sense to you and what feels good to you. But don't read too far into headlines, especially when it comes to money, because you don't know their story.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, because there's so many different routes you can do, right? And there's the being well capitalized, there's trying to bootstrap as far as you can, and be profitable along the way. And there's really no way to do it. I think it also probably depends on your end goal, right? I think I've talked to enough founders now to know like there's a big difference between someone who's building a business to hopefully sell, and that's like really the end goal. And there's some people that are trying to build a family business and it's slow, but it's very profitable, and they're building it like one brick at a time type thing. So I think it's interesting.
I'll tell you this, it's a lot easier to sell your business if it's profitable.
Yes.
There's a lot more takers on that one, right? Again, it's
Yeah.
very difficult and it's very difficult. And so there's been a couple transactions even recently that I know, and they were making money. It wasn't just that big top line. I know for a fact that there was money at the bottom, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And
Sure.
and so you guys are a great example. Again, I will say that 2017 to now is different.
Oh yeah.
Just like the landscape's different, there's no doubt about it. But RX was making money.
Yeah.
They
Definitely.
built a real business, right?
Right.
They had just a tremendous growing business top line, but they were making money, right?
Yeah.
And then with timing, luck, opportunity, everything, like you need all that, boom, 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 comes together.
Perfect
And
storm.
then something amazing happens, like the RX transaction. So
Yeah.
hard to duplicate that one again, if you're asking me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, definitely. It's like I was someone, like I told you at the beginning, wasn't from CPG or food. RX has been the first experience I've had in it, but in being in finance, obviously, like knowing the background of everything, it's wild to just learn how RX and Peter and Jared did it, and then talking to you and lots of people in CPG. It's just wild. Everyone's got a little bit different path. There's definitely not one path to success. I think it's just interesting to get everyone's perspective on when's the right time to raise, when's not, when do you need to just hunker down and try to be profitable on your own. It's like an ever evolving thing too, to your point, like from 2017 to now, just like the opportunities that are there. And obviously now with the economic conditions, it's all changed so much. So to your point, like trying to build a profitable business, I think, can pay off in a lot of ways, but to each their own, to your point. So that's interesting. I know one thing I had to ask you, I love asking this question, is do you remember version 1 of your first IWON product? Like what that tasted like, what it looked like? Do you just remember like that very first batch you put together?
Shit.
I would hope so. The very first one,
It
if you
was
hit it
not
out of the
it,
park, that'd be wild.
My own mom told me this doesn't taste very good.
That's hilarious.
When your own mom, and by the way, I'm Jewish, so it takes it to a whole other level. When when a Jewish mom tells her son that something that they made doesn't taste good, it's like a double whammy, dude. It's
That's
like
funny.
on a whole other scale of wow. Okay. So yeah, in short, we our first product was, I'd say, just okay. It was a chip. It
Okay.
was high in protein, much higher. It had 20 grams. It was part of my learning curve. And what I discovered as I was getting along was this has to be taste first, period. And it made me go back to the drawing board and really get in on the back end and R&D and all that and really figure this thing out. And that's why, again, we've been blessed to get to where we are because I was able to get over some of those hurdles.
Right, right. And how many iterations do you think you went through before you actually sold your first product? Do you remember that?
Well, we initially did get a chip out and we did okay with it. And then as far as the chip line, we had made iterations along the way. So we probably did like 3 or 4 more iterations.
Okay.
And we got into what we really are our horses today and our leading snacks, which is our puffs and our sticks. That was in the middle of 2018. And we've since even discontinued the chips because these are the movers. And these can be what really creates the brand, the identity, the people talking about it, right?
Right.
And it's what's really cool is we have other innovations in our back pocket. I just talked about this too, that we don't need to do anything with. It's another piece to what are you doing now during COVID, post-COVID, what's going to happen over 18 months? Don't move quickly. Like relax. We have 2 amazing products, and we believe that these products could probably triple or quadruple our revenue. Focus on that. Right. Don't get ahead of yourself. And then, hey, when everybody sees the light after this thing, because again, I think this is an 18-month thing, maybe 24. Sure. Then you can double down, right? Take one of those innovations. And again, we got a couple great ones.
Oh, that's exciting.
And then yeah, it is. It's very cool. And then put them into play.
Yeah, I know. I think, it's interesting. I think I've seen a lot of brands in the last couple of years. I feel like almost like over innovating, like just trying to innovate for the sake of innovating. And then to your point, they're like lose sight of their core thing to really get that to the healthiest spot they possibly can. So that's exciting to hear you guys feel like you're doing it the right way too, because obviously that's a important piece of this whole COVID puzzle.
We had like 12 flavors, dude, at one time. Like we're this small little company,
Yeah, no,
and
for sure.
Because me, I say too, I'm neurotic, right? It's part of my DNA.
Okay.
We had like 12 flavors. Nobody needs 12 flavors. Relax, So yeah. And that's an important piece. Anybody's watching this too. The most valuable, brands, in my opinion, are the ones who are making up their revenue with fewer SKUs, right?
Okay.
That's the name of the game, especially in the early part. Fewer SKUs to make up a big piece of your revenue. it just has so much value add for you, in terms of just production runs and ease management of your pipeline. Like just I hope that's a key piece for people to take away.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. You can overextend yourself from an inventory perspective, from trying to get on shelf everywhere. Yeah, it makes every time you add a SKU, it gets just a little bit more complex. Then you add a new product line, it just multiplies it, or extrapolates it again. So yeah, to your point, that's a great piece of advice. One thing that I loved when I'm bringing up RX a lot, but I did like when I came to RX was kind of the what's the right word? Basically, like just the friendliness, the hands-on. Like we wrote a lot of like thank you notes to customers from time to time, and I've noticed this from like following you on social media over the last probably month and a half or so. Just like you're a big fan of some of that stuff too. I noticed you said. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had an early grocery or convenience chain that took you guys in that you still hand deliver product to every week. And I thought that was like the coolest story. So I'd love if you could just, give a little download of like what that was. I think it's like a really cool part of your story.
It's not that cool. I lose money on that account because of the fact of that. Okay. He won't pull from KE because of it, like
that's so
it's it's a local, a local grocery store here where I grew up. It just so happens I moved back to where I
oh, cool.
grew up. And I still hand deliver their account. It's the only account that we have where I walk it through the door. And then as far as handwritten stuff, like,
oh, love it.
I buy these, people can take this. I buy, sets of 10, it says big thank you, right? And they sit on my desk because every once a month or whatever it is, I just grab one out. My handwriting's horrible and it is, then they at least know it's from me, right?
Sure.
And
yeah.
I'm simply saying thank you because, we've gone so, that's a whole other episode, where we've gone and with social media and the, and just email and text messaging and, I like old school. I love that, like,
me too.
Handshake and real talk type stuff. And I realize that we evolve, as humans and with technology and everything else. But man, do I miss some of the old stuff. And I think we can continue to keep it in line with stuff like that. Write a nice thank you note to a buyer, to a team member. It just literally says thank you.
Yeah.
Get in the mail. And that's just a small, small add-on.
Yeah, no, I love that. Sometimes the smallest things, the simplest things are the things that kind of make the difference, in my opinion. And I've learned a lot of that, in my time in CPG. Speaking of, keeping it old school, I like to ask this question as like kind of some of my final questions I like to ask founders is, with technology and the way everything's evolving, and to your point, it's like we're on email or text messaging, Slack, all this, there's just so much technology in our face. I'm sure from just talking to you today, there's just so many different things you guys are focused on and trying to move the needle on and change. What like tools, is it pen and paper, notebooks? Is there a tool you use? Is it Excel? Like, what is it that Mark wakes up every day and like looks at? Like, how do you plan your goals and your daily, to-do list and all that kind of tactical stuff? Like, what do you use for all that?
I'd say that I'm the worst at stuff like that. I keep most of it just up in the dome.
Okay.
Again, I'm not big on the whole, technology stuff, the Slacks. I'm on a couple Slacks, but people know like that's not where you're going to drop info to Mark or he's going to see it. I'm a big emailer. It's one of the, after I do what I'm supposed to do with, my family in the morning, right? I have that regimen first.
Okay.
Then I do check email. And there's a lot to just go through real quick just to see what ones need a response or don't. And then I'm on it most of the day. So people, again, who know me and work with me, I'm one of those really quick responders.
Got it.
Because I don't leave things in the get back to. I don't know what even people talk
like
about.
In the inbox, like waiting for a response.
I don't do all that. Things that come in my email get responded to that day.
Got it.
And so, the other stuff, I'll see a Slack comment every once in a while and be like, oh, that's cool. what they're
Right.
doing over there.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you feel like that helps? Because I've picked up on this too. I've been talking to people recently who kind of treat their inbox the same way you're talking about. Do you think that is inevitably kind of what keeps IWON like moving faster and progressing, is like maybe a little less planning and being so methodical and just like doing more?
Yes. But again, it's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think we're so nimble, and that's the thing I love about being a small team. And I've said this too about, we believe we could do 3 or 4 times what we're doing right now with the same team. There's
Oh, wow.
five team members here. And it's because we've all divvied and we're playing on the field together. We all know our positions, and it
Love that.
makes up for a really good team. We will add on where needed, at certain stages of the business. But with that said, the idea of just ripping through the days, but still understanding that you're leaning into your why, the core values of your brand, where you're going and why you're going there, and then you have overarching goals as far as put, like we talked about, potential door counts, and then like where should your direct to consumer be? What do those numbers look like? What's the retention? What does a customer base look like? What do your emails look like? That type of thing is there, but it's not like one of these things where you want to put some goal for 12 months from now, because I think you can get really complacent. I leave it as really simple. I'm scared every day, dude.
Oh, I like that.
I'm like, I legitimately am scared, dude, every day. And I don't necessarily like that. But I will say that'll light a fire under anyone's ass.
Sure. Oh, yeah. So you're saying like, yeah, if you have goals that are due at the end of the year and you just need to hit it, you might have underestimated. Actually, it was funny. I interviewed Matt Frazier the other day on here, which was fun just because he's very obviously hard work pays off, the whole thing. And we talked about, he always talks about how he thinks people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year, which sounds very similar to what you're saying. It's like you kind of, if you just have those big goals at the end of the year, like you could have either done a lot more and you can get complacent. That's really interesting.
Those are great comments because, there's a lot of this stuff that goes on about there. I don't know if it's on entrepreneurs or founders or whatever, maybe about like you're grinding all the time and you're working 18 hours. I'm like, dude, what are you doing for 18 hours? Get some sleep, man.
Yeah.
I don't get all that. Like, does that mean then that I can do, their work in 5 hours? I mean, what's the disconnect there, right?
Got it. Yeah, I
We
agree.
all know who's working and not working and achieving goals and not achieving goals. I've said this before, especially with COVID now, everybody's working from home. Do I honestly believe our head of sales is working 40 hours? I don't give a shit.
Sure.
I don't,
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
again, I guess that's me. I don't know. And maybe that's why it works. I'm not like down on somebody's throat, like what's going on. All I care about is that things are getting done that we've discussed, right? That we're achieving some milestones, that we onboarded an account and they're being treated well, that we're moving the needle, that, isn't it? That's the simple part about all this. As far as whether or not you're working 9 to 5, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I mean, to your point, you're boiling it down to what's really important, and it's just getting shit done. It's getting the right shit done. It's treating people the right way, and probably being healthy and trying to be happy too.
That's the key piece. As much as I
That
can
balance.
push out, me, I'm a health and fitness enthusiast, right? So
Sure.
that's the foundation to everything else. I start the morning, after family stuff in the gym.
Okay. Yeah.
But you would want that for everybody, just everybody, right? But including your team, so that so that they feel good too.
Right. Right. That totally makes sense. I love that. Do you? I like to ask founders this because I think a lot of founders, and I'm not sure if you're this kind of person, but they have at least one in mind. Do you have one book, podcast, something for knowledge, mindset that you recommend to family and friends?
Wish I did, dude.
No,
I'm gonna stump you on this
it's
one.
all good.
I don't listen to, I don't read very much. I mean, again, and I don't listen to all those podcasts. Early, I listened to a few of them, and they just seem so, more power to them. A lot of them, these guys are so impressive. Like me trying to do the interview stuff that I've been doing, like you're better than I am. Like
No, I love it.
I'm just having fun with it, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
I could talk like this all day because I do it. You know, like I can talk to a founder because I understand. So I can ask questions like right off the cuff, right?
Got it.
A lot of the other stuff that's out there, and they're amazing. They're amazing talents as far as journalism and the like. What am I going to listen to? Like, I'm more worried about whether or not we're going to, get through tomorrow. Like
100%.
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. Nope. That makes sense. That makes sense. You're like you said, we've said a couple times, you're a doer. So makes sense that you're not pondering, you're just doing. I love it. It's good stuff. Um, Mark, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Is there a good way for people to try IWON and get a hold of you or the team if there's any questions or they want to learn more?
IWONOrganics.com. And then if they want to hit me up, I mean, maybe I'll send out a bag. I don't know who's watching this. It's my first initial last name, msamuel@IWONOrganics.com. I like getting random emails.
Oh, wow. There you go. Okay. Nice. Putting the email out.
Like I told you, I get neurotic. I can't leave an email unless it's spam. It's listen, if it's spam type stuff, you're getting,
You get blocked. Yeah, there you go. Well, awesome. Mark, thank you so much. This was a blast. I hope you enjoyed it. And I know there's a lot of great content in here, so I'm excited to share with my listeners. So thank you again for the time. It was great to talk to you.
You did a good job, man. Those were solid questions.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm trying to, what, it's funny. You said it perfectly. Same thing that you're doing. I listened to the one the other day you had, and this to me has become such a great way to network during COVID where we can't see people in person. We can't do the handshake stuff. And I think there's just something so valuable. This is a subset of my podcast, but I think I've always felt like once I got into the CPG industry, some people knew each other, but the general CPG industry seemed very competitive. And I've just always thought that like we could all meet each other and get to know each other better. And I feel like there's just like a cumulative, benefit of more people getting to know each other in the business. So
I agree. Totally agree.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And good luck with everything. Hope everything, goes well and gets through COVID. And I'm excited to see how you guys do and keep
growing. Shoot me your address after this. I'll give you some snacks.
Hey, same. And I'll send you some.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thank you so much. See ya.